So the first UFC event took place in 1993. And for those of you who are fans, you will know who the winner was. The winner was a guy who weighed 170 pounds. 170 pounds, right? So the whole purpose of the UFC is to get the toughest guys in the world together who are trained in martial arts and have them beat the crap out of each other. And the guy who emerged victorious weighed 170 pounds. And he not only won the first one, he won the second UFC event the year later. He won the fourth one as well. In addition to that, it's not like he won by doing some Bruce Lee stuff. He was basically wrestling. Now, again, I ask your indulgence for this. This context, I feel, is very important, even though it's a weird place to start, given that I'm going to be discussing problems. For those of you who are thinking ahead with me, well, you realize that this guy had a massive problem. A 170-pound guy going up against 270-pound guys has a problem. Especially back then where there were no rules in the UFC. Eye gouging was allowed, hitting in the crotch was allowed. I mean, it was the Wild West, essentially. But it's fascinating to consider how he was able to do it. Now, the gentleman's name was Royce Gracie, spelled like Royce. He is, I was going to say he was, but he still is. He's still alive. He is a Brazilian jiu-jitsu master. So he's from Brazil. That's why his name is pronounced Royce instead of Royce. And he's actually from the first family of jiu-jitsu in Brazil. So Brazilian jiu-jitsu has become a thing. Prior to 1993, nobody had ever heard of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Prior to 1993, everyone thought martial arts came exclusively from the Far East. But the story of the Gracies is fascinating. And again, this is context, and it's gonna come to a place. Remember my rule. I can talk about anything. I can go as far afield as I want, and I have to bring it back to something that is useful and empowering for you, the listener. Okay, so this family, the Gracie family, absolutely fascinating story. It may be hard to discern myth from reality, but basically, here's what happened. The leader of the family. Well, let me go back. There were several Gracie brothers, and this is going back to like the early 1900s, maybe the 1950s. This is data that I should have. But his name was Helio Gracie. Right. One of them, his name was Helio Gracie. He had a few brothers. And their father was friends with a Japanese, I guess, diplomat. There was a group of Japanese gentlemen who came to Brazil back in the day. One of them was a great judo champion. So Elio and his brothers, the father had done a favor for him and they were friends. And he asked if the guy would train the boys in judo, in Japanese judo. So he did. But Elio had a problem. Elio was a kind of a frail and sickly kid. And he couldn't compete in a sport that was based mostly on explosive strength. So what he did was he kind of altered the principles of jiu-jitsu to take away the aspect of strength, explosiveness, speed, things like that, because those were qualities that he didn't have. And he made it into very much an intellectual art and pursuit. He changed some basic foundational things. And this is what developed into what's called Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, or Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, it did branch off, right? So there are some different lineages. But Elio had another hobby, and his other hobby was reproducing. So he had a bunch of boys. mostly boys. And, and he trained them all in his style of jujitsu. He trained them all from when, before they could walk almost. Now, fast forward a few years, and what he actually did was he wanted to spread this gospel of Brazilian jiu-jitsu. So his boys, he kind of sent to different parts of the world, right? And one of them went to California, and his name was Rorion. Here's the other thing about the Gracie. So again, remarkable clan, just expert at grappling, or, this martial art called Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Experts at reproducing, apparently, but also experts in marketing. Incredible marketers, incredible promoters. And that's why Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu today, if you ask most people have heard of it, and most people, might put it at the top of the heap of all the martial arts. But Rorion was trying to figure out how to promote this particular martial art. And he tried various things. One of the things he would do is he would have challenge matches. So he would invite anyone from any martial art, any master, to come over to his gym and try to defeat him or one of his guys. And nobody ever did. It's that effective an art. So another idea he had was to create this event. And he did, and he called it the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Now, his idea wasn't to find out what the best form of martial arts was. That's what he said. His idea was to promote Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Now, those two things are related. And what he did was he asked his brother, Royce, to be the guy to do it. The interesting thing is Royce was not the best in the family, not even close. But for whatever reason, they chose Royce to do it. Now, Royce, as I said before, he won the first few UFCs at 170 pounds. How did he do it? Well, he used the principles of this now intellectual martial art that focused on leverage and positioning and just outthinking other people. It was turned into a chess match. And that's why he was able to defeat and actually submit all of these guys who were much bigger and stronger and more explosive and could strike. He couldn't strike at all. If he struck somebody, it was basically to distract them. He was looking for the submission, to choke them out, to get leverage on an arm and, have the person tap before he broke it. Now, fast forward a few years, third generation of Gracies. There's a gentleman named Henner. Now, Henner, I believe, is Rorion's child. I'm laughing because these are all R names. They all start with R, and they're all pronounced with H's, right? But Henner also, master marketer. And one of the ways that he promoted jiu-jitsu is he would go to a mall, let's say, set up a mat, and then he would invite the toughest guy out there. Now, he wouldn't do a death match, but basically he would give them a scenario. He would say, okay, indulge me here. Lay down on your back. He would lay on top of their chest and he would say, we've just invaded your home. My associate is raping your wife in the other room. What are you going to do? All you have to do is get me off of you. And nobody could do it. The biggest, strongest guys couldn't do it. They would struggle and they would, try to bench press him, and they would slither around, and they couldn't do it. With all of that at stake, they could not do it. And then he would turn it around and he would lie on his back, and he would have a big, strong guy on top of him, mounting him. And lo and behold, he would reverse the guy like this. It would take him about a second to turn the situation around to where he was on top of the other guy. Now, this was like a big wow to people. How is that possible? And this brings us to some of our keys when it comes to solving problems, because A classic problem is a situation where you have a goal and there's something or someone who has a different goal preventing you. Right? So it could be a big guy sitting on top of your chest. It could be a wall that you have to get beyond. It's a barrier. In addition, the other thing about problems is they tend to bring with them some worry or concern. Theoretically, absent worry or concern, a problem is not a problem. It's just a set of circumstances. Okay. So from the Gracies, and I'm talking about Henner in particular, who's become a big shot, like training police officers and, really marketing and positioning himself very well. What were the things that they did in order to solve problems, and what could we learn from them? Well, first of all, he dealt with the problem. Now, this might sound bizarre, but if you have a massive problem, more often than not, people don't even get to deal with the problem, or they do, but secondarily, because they're dealing with all the worry and the concern about the problem, all of the implications. Think about it. If you are on your back and a guy is on top of you, and you know that his gang mate is raping your wife, think about all the things that might go through your head. All that worry. Oh my God, what am I going to do in this poor thing? And I can't handle that. And she's never going to be the same. And, and I'm less of a man, and whatever you would bring into the situation. Those worries and those thoughts are not really a necessary part of the situation. The situation is you have a guy on top of you that you have to get off. It's not all of the subsequent things that might happen after that, right? It's not all of the thoughts and the feelings and the fears and the self-judgment and all of that. That is not the circumstances that you should be looking at. You should be looking at getting the guy off you and nothing else. How do I get this gentleman off of me? Okay, so that would be step number one. Step number one would be dealing with the actual problem or the actual set of circumstances, as opposed to the stuff that psychs us out and doesn't allow us to deal immediately with that. Does that make sense? I think it does. Okay. The second thing is that for most problems, right, once you get rid of the emotional component, the thoughts, the fears, the feelings, etc., there is a technical solution. Okay. So a technical solution means there's a very specific set of circumstances. There's a very specific way to deal with it. This is how engineers behave, right? We have a challenge. We have to build this bridge, and the sand or the dirt is very soft. It's not. We can't get anchors in very easily, in order to have a strong foundation. So what do we do at that point, right? So there's a technical solution. Now, there is almost always a technical solution which will work. Almost always. In the case of a big guy sitting on your chest, the particular technical solution is called an OPA, right? So that's a move in Brazilian or Gracie Jiu-Jitsu whereby you're able to trap a leg with your leg, right? So you're able to just put your leg on top of his leg and kind of immobilize it, and then trap an arm on the same side, and then kind of arch your back. And because he has the arm and the leg trapped, then it's easy to just roll him over. It was that simple. For the guy who knows the technical solution, who seeks a technical solution, and doesn't make himself crazy with worry and doubt and fear. Okay. Which kind of brings us to this other aspect related. Um, the first step in a problem that's an acute problem, right? So that could be sudden, that could mean with potentially severe consequences, really immediate, is to bypass all that other stuff. There is time generally afterwards to worry about the acute problem, to go through that situation. But that moment is not the time to do it because that moment calls for action. So, instead of trying to outthink the reactions, the emotional reactions, right? It's okay to think in technical terms to solve a problem, but instead of trying to outthink all of the other stuff, you bypass it. You put it aside. That in of itself can be a tremendous skill. And that we don't often do enough while we're indulging ourselves with all the feelings and the emotional reactions. Okay? You cast it aside, you put it aside. It'll be there or it won't be there. This is a conversation I've had with many patients over the years, patients and clients, depending on what I was doing at the time. People will be confronted with things. Classically, a lump is found. All right. Now, of course, there's a lot of worry and concern when that happens. And it's not a wrong thing to go there. It's just not as effective as it could be. I've requested of people, it's hard to make a very harsh demand, but I've requested of people to see if they can't just put aside that stuff until they have more information. And the reason I feel so strongly about it is I've seen people make themselves absolutely crazy because of the possibility of something. Now, if God forbid, and everyone has been touched by cancer, if God forbid that lump turns out to be cancerous, there's plenty of time to worry and to be fearful. But I've seen it a bunch of times. Somebody has something, and then they have a test, and then a week later they find out that it was nothing. So all of that was for naught. And I'm not trying to be insensitive here. I'm trying to communicate the importance of being effective, nor am I trying to say that it's not something that I'm prone to also. It's pretty natural. It's just not effective. Okay. So here is the approach, at least the first few steps for solving any problem in the world, because all problems share the same fundamental architecture, which is that you have a goal and there is some kind of a barrier in your way that is hard to overcome, and it tends to create worry. If it's a very acute thing, you just bypass all that stuff. Okay. B, you deal with the actual problem. C, you apply a technical solution to that problem. I mean, there's a definite theme here, right? There's a definite theme of the ability to be analytical and deal with the real world stuff. I mean, essentially, that's what we want to do. We want to deal with the objective reality because it's the subjective reality that more often than not is going to get in our way. Technical solutions abound. You can't get on Facebook without seeing ads for technical solutions to problems. So it's a matter of finding the correct technical solution for the correct situation. Okay. And again, by technical, I don't necessarily mean tech-based. Very often those create other problems, right? I mean technical, involving specific knowledge about something. And there are technical solutions in realms that you might not think. There are technical solutions in the realm of relationships, right? That could seem a problem. Two people can't stop fighting, a husband and wife, they cannot stop fighting. What would be a technical solution to that? They exist. I mean, I can't tell you I have the absolute technical solution to that. I mean, that's a potential minefield, but very often it's in the realm of communications, right? There are generally technical solutions available if you can find the right one and apply it. That's the other thing. Whatever solution is found must be applied until the problem is resolved. Okay? Talk about weight loss. So we offer a technical solution for weight loss, right? There are other solutions. There are solutions that try to deal with the non-technical aspects, and those do exist, right? But for the most part, we offer a technical solution. We get into other things because it's a necessary part of the whole subject. But that technical solution cannot be applied for a week for somebody who needs to lose 50 pounds. That technical solution needs to be applied until the problem is resolved. So for those of you who have this problem called weight gain, and you have a lot of thoughts and feelings about it, I have to do something, but I don't want to, but I know I need to, but I can't. It's the summer, but okay. The possibility does exist to bypass those things and to find a technical solution to where you're dealing with the problem, which is generally a metabolic problem. Generally, there are other things, right? So you could bypass everything else, deal with that problem until it's resolved. Not until you're a little less comfortable, or a little more comfortable, rather, a little less uncomfortable. That's not what's ideal, right? So typical scenario, person needs to lose 50 pounds. They lose 20. Now all of a sudden the blood pressure is a little better. The pants are a little looser. And the whole idea of losing the 50 goes away. Okay. So basically, that's what I have to say on the problem of problems. Most or all problems can be resolved if these steps are followed. The best problem solvers in the world, this is what they do. The Gracies can be our Sherpas because their whole art that they developed was based on that understanding. All right, so programming note, next week is Labor Day. And by the way, that's why I chose this topic today. I've spoken about this before. Some of you might have heard it. There is no limit to the number of times you could hear about something like this because life, in large part, exists of problems. There is no such thing as life without problems. That would be horrific. Not having any problems to solve would be horrific. It would be terrible. You got to trust me on that. It would result in chaos. We need problems in our lives. But Labor Day is coming up. Labor Day tends to bring with it problems, changes of schedules, right? These are, now, is this a massive problem? It depends on your perception, right? But it is a bit of a challenge. So things are going to change. Obviously, there's a change in weather. There's a change in the amount of light that we have. We are in the middle of this election season. I've spoken about that several weeks ago. I mentioned how this is the world's longest sales cycle. And the strategy tends to be to make the problems of the world seem so bad and so overwhelming that you better vote for me. So I've argued that stress is created very often by people in that situation. Okay. It's going to get worse. That's the one thing I promise you. I also stated that during the summer, as crazy as this summer has been, I mean, we've had circumstances every single day changing. I mean, we had a shot fired at one of the candidates that hit him. I mean, we the choices of the VPs, the stories that are coming out about them, the Bobby Kennedy, as the third party guy, but not really anymore. I mean, it's been a crazy cycle. We've been told that there's more riding on this particular election than any other election in history. Both sides have painted an apocalyptic picture if they don't win. Have you noticed that? Some of you listening to me right now might be thinking, oh, he's making light of it. But I know that if my person doesn't win, I have to say person now. I was thinking of saying guy. If my person doesn't win, I know that the world is going to hell in a handbasket. Okay? A lot of that is actually generated by the candidates and the campaigns. It's very good salesmanship. As a chiropractor, we used to call that scare care. You scare the heck out of somebody. Now, there is a responsibility to tell somebody about consequences. So what the line is between articulating consequences in order to encourage a person to take action and scaring the hell out of them, I'm not sure. I am sure that line is being crossed daily now. And we have, what do we have? 80 days, fewer. Early voting will be starting soon. So I do know there's going to be a lot more drama about that, and more attention is going to be on it, because in the summer, nobody seems to care. I mean, there's pleasant things happening in the summer. The weather is great. It's been a hot summer, but, we can't complain. It's beautiful right now. So that's why the subject of problems at this particular junction, because they may increase temporarily, but if you know how to handle them and you know that you can handle them, then you will be much the better for it. So that's it for me today. I will not see you next week because of the holiday. So we're just going to skip next week, and then I will see everyone the week after. I'll give you a date. It's going to be, I want to say Monday the 9th. Okay, maybe, why isn't it showing me what I want to see? Yep, Monday the 9th, I will see you all again. Have a terrific, terrific holiday. Take care.